Here's a question for you. Can artificial intelligence therapists replace human counselors? I'm going to talk to you about this today on the podcast, the issue of artificial intelligence, or AI as it's known, and to discuss whether AI can help with all kinds of health and therapy issues. Compliments of the season to you from Peace Unplugged in this Christmas week. So is AI a great addition to humanity, or does it set a dangerous precedent that could lead to humanity's downfall? It seems to me that AI is changing our world in a super fast way at this time, probably faster than anything that has changed in history. I'm asking the question, crucially, will AI bring us better health, better mental health, and ultimately bring us the peace that we desire? Or is it just creating more anxiety? Can AI help with therapy? Are we as humans just programming ourselves to obsolescence? So let's look at what AI is, first and foremost. AI intelligence, artificial intelligence, refers to computer systems designed to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as understanding language, recognizing patterns, making decisions, and learning from experience. The next part of this to refer to is something called large language models. What are LLMs? They are a specific type of AI trained on vast amounts of text data to understand and generate human-like language. Examples include GPT-4, Claude, which is one that I use, and LAMDA. These LLMs can engage in conversations and answer questions for us. They can provide explanations. And it's even suggested they can provide emotional support. And that's by processing billions of data. And that allegedly is helping them to understand context, nuance, and meaning in human communication. There's also something called generative AI, and that refers to artificial intelligence systems that can create new content, including text, images, audio, and video. It's suggested that in mental health, generative AI powers the chatbots that conduct therapeutic conversations and generate personalized coping strategies. So let's get into the meat and bones of this. Imagine that you're having a panic attack at 3 a.m. You can't get hold of a therapist at that time of night. Might call the helpline, but there's a 45-minute wait to speak to anybody. Can end up feeling completely alone. And that is actually the reality for millions of people who face mental health crisis, sometimes on a daily basis. And it's always worse when it's outside of traditional hours. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 1 billion people live with mental health disorders. Yet 75% of those in low and middle income countries receive no treatment at all. Apparently in the USA, it can take up to 48 days to get a referral to a psychiatrist. That is according to a 2022 study published in the JAMA Network Open. And also, that sort of therapy is very expensive, particularly if one goes for it private in the UK. So it's thought that AI-powered mental health tools are able to help with this. There's something called Wobot. That's an AI chatbot developed by Stanford researchers, and it provides CBT that can be accessed 24 hours a day at a fraction of the cost of a human therapist. There was a randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research in 2017. It found that college students using Wobot for 2 weeks showed significant reductions in depression symptoms. Compared that to controlled groups. The bot was available immediately and instantly, didn't require any insurance, and the cost was significantly lower. Research by Fitzpatrick demonstrated that users engaged with Wobot an average of 12 times over 2 weeks, showing higher engagement than typical therapy homework completion rates. Okay, so now let's look at an example. Sarah, a 34-year-old executive, struggled with anxiety for years but never sought help. The thought of sitting in a waiting room, potentially seeing colleagues or neighbours, and admitting that she needed therapy felt really unbearable for her. She represents millions that suffer in silence. And I can testify to that, having worked with people looking for help. I'm worried they're going to bump into somebody that they know. And inevitably, that does happen. Apparently, the American Psychological Association reports that nearly 60% of people with mental health symptoms don't seek treatment due to the stigma, the shame, and for obvious reasons, the privacy concerns. It suggests that young men are particularly vulnerable. They're 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. Yet significantly, they're less likely to ask for help. You see, traditional therapy requires the ability to expose vulnerability, and that can be in physical places where confidentiality can feel a little bit uncertain, despite attempts of places to overcome that. It's suggested that the AI chatbots take away that element of fear of seeing a human being. A 2021 study in Nature Medicine by Sharma people disclosed more intimate mental health struggles to AI systems than to human therapists in the initial consultations. Apparently, participants reported feeling less judged and more honest with AI. The research showed that 25% higher disclosure rates of suicidal ideation to AI systems compared to intake forms reviewed by humans. For populations feeling cultural stigma around mental health, including many Asian, Latino, and African American communities, AI provided a crucial first step towards care without the perceived shame of admitting struggles to another person. CBT, to cognitive behavioral therapy, has been set as the gold standard for treating anxiety and depression, and is backed by decades of research. The problem is there aren't enough trained CBT therapists to meet the global demand, and that causes a great gap and a big problem. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that training a single CBT therapist takes 2 to 3 years of specialised education, and that's apparently beyond a master's degree. And I can testify that therapist burnout rates exceed 50%. It's estimated that there are only 100,000 licensed psychologists serving 330 million Americans, yet depression and anxiety seems to be going up 25% globally since 2020. That's according to World Health Organization data. It's thought that large language models trained on evidence-based therapeutic protocols can deliver standardized, high-quality interventions at an unlimited scale. Apparently, a 2023 study published by JAMA Psychiatry by Bendig examined AI-delivered CBT interventions across 2,400 participants. Results show comparable efficacy to human-delivered CBT for mild to moderate depression, with effect sizes of D equals 0.55 for AI versus D equals 0.62 for human therapists, a clinically insignificant difference. But the AI systems consistently delivered adherent interventions without deviation, without the fatigue, and without the burnout. Now we know that every human being's mental health journey is unique. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So we try to make therapy personalized. The problem is therapists can only remember so much information across dozens of patients at weekly sessions. Research shows that personalized interventions are significantly more effective than the one-size-fits-all approach. But human therapists face cognitive limits. There's problems remembering specific triggers mentioned in a particular session, maybe from weeks ago, and also trying to connect the subtle behavioural changes over time. A study in psychotherapy research found that therapists accurately recalled only 42% of important client details from sessions 3 weeks prior. So you can see there that some key elements can be missed in the therapeutic journey. Now, it's suggested that AI systems never forget. They analyse every single interaction, and they're able to analyse individual patterns in a better way to perhaps human intervention. A groundbreaking study in the translational psychiatry by Taurus demonstrated that machine learning algorithms could predict depressive episodes 3 to 5 days in advance by analysing smartphone usage patterns, sleep data, and chatbot interactions with 80% accuracy. The AI chatbot Replica uses natural language processing to build detailed user profiles over time. And that includes adapting conversational styles, coping strategy suggestions, all based on the massive amount of data that's been collected. In clinical trials with 1,200 users, personalization led to 35% higher engagement rates and 28% greater symptom improvement compared to static therapeutic content. The system learned that user A responded better to mindfulness techniques in the morning, while user B needed cognitive reframing exercises during the evening when anxiety spikes. These kind of micro interventions are pretty much impossible to be analysed by a human therapist. And of course, the point is, mental health crises don't follow business hours. Suicidal ideation, severe panic attacks, and acute depressive episodes tend to strike at unpredictable moments. And the current setup we have just simply gets overwhelmed. The National Suicidal Prevention Lifeline reports average wait times of 15 to 30 minutes. That's where people abandon the call on rates of up to 25% during peak hours. Accident and emergency get flooded with mental health crises, yet 80% of the doctors in emergency rooms or A&E report there's a lack of psychiatric resource. And let's face it, people in crisis need immediate intervention. Delays of that can be fatal. The CDC reports that suicide rates increased 36% between 2000 and 2021, while crisis support infrastructure remained largely unchanged. AI crisis support systems provide immediate and unlimited availability. This crisis text line, which uses AI triage and human counselor collaboration, and has processed over 7 million conversations. That's research published in the Suicide and Life-Threatening Behaviour 2020. Apparently, the AI instantly identifies high risk by analysing language patterns, looking at specific phrases correlate with imminent suicide risk. And what that does is then prioritises those conversations, but then human counsellors to access within 60 seconds. A Stanford study found that AI-enhanced triage reduced average responses times from 9 minutes to under 2 minutes, while maintaining 100% capture rate of the highest risk individuals. The system processed crisis conversations in 83 different languages. That means they were able to reach populations with often zero access to traditional crisis services. The great potential of AI is not about replacing human therapists, but it is intended to make them more effective. Current therapists' workloads include extensive administration tasks, and I know that from my experience of working in that sort of environment. There's the note-taking, the treatment plans or recovery plans, there's the risk assessments. All those administrative tasks consume the time of therapists and wear them down, leaving less cognitive ability to look after patients directly. Professional therapists spend an estimated 40% of their time on documentation, insurance paperwork, perhaps in America, and administrative tasks rather than dealing with direct client care. So it's hardly surprising that burnout occurs. 67% of mental health professionals report high emotional exhaustion. Meanwhile, they lack real-time data on patient behaviour between sessions, relying solely on client self-reports, which research shows is often inaccurate or incomplete. AI augmentation tools are transforming clinical practice. A 2023 study in the Lancet Digital Health by Graham examined AI-assisted therapy, where chatbots provided between sessions support while the human therapists conducted weekly sessions. Results showed that 47% faster symptoms improvement compared to therapy only, and that resulted in 33% lower dropout rates. The AI collected continuous data on patient mood, on their thoughts and their behaviours, and that presented therapists with actionable insights at each session. Therapists apparently reported feeling much more effective and much better informed about their patients. Administrative AI tools like Elios, ELEOS Health automatically generate session notes and treatment plans from recorded sessions, reducing documentation time by 70%. And allowing therapists to see more clients or reduce the burnout. The future isn't AI versus human, it's a combination of both. With all these developments, critical questions still remain. Can AI truly understand human suffering? What are we losing if AI mediates the most vulnerable moments? And to that end, where do we draw the ethical barriers? Critics are raising valid concerns here. 2022 study in Nature Human Behaviour by Binns found that therapeutic chatbots can provide incorrect advice in complex situations, with error rates of 12 to 18% for nuanced mental health scenarios. And of course, privacy concerns loom large, and mental health data is particularly sensitive. Yet most AI therapy apps lack the robust encryption needed. And of course, there's also the empathy illusion. AI can simulate understanding, but can it truly comprehend the human experience? Dr. Sherry Turkle at MIT warns that over-reliance on AI relationships may cause some major issues. So what happens when vulnerable people get too attached to the AI and that AI system perhaps then becomes discontinued or modified by perhaps some corporate decisions? It seems the solution lies in thoughtful integration, not just wholesale replacement. Leading researchers advocate for hybrid care models. That's where AI can handle the accessibility, perhaps the scalability, and the continuous monitoring, while the human therapists look after the complex clinical judgment, such as the genuine empathy and the essential human connection. It appears there's some regulatory frameworks that will be emerging. Apparently, the FDA released guidelines for mental health AI in 2023, and the American Psychological Association published ethical standards for digital mental health tools, researched by Fisk in JAMA Network Open, showed that explicitly positioning AI as a therapeutic tool rather than a replacement therapist led to better outcomes and more appropriate expectations. Users understood that AI's limitations while benefiting from its availability. The most successful programs combine AI-delivered psychoeducation and skill building with periodic human clinical oversight, leveraging technology's strength while preserving the irreplaceable value of the human therapeutic relationship. So here's the point. Is AI actually effective? Before we embrace this as a solution, we got to look at some uncomfortable truths about how effective it is. While studies show some statistical improvements, these metrics might be masking a much deeper problem. AI cannot replicate the core healing or the human connection. Research by Coughlin in Psychological Medicine 2023 found that while AI chatbots reduced depression scores by modest amounts, they showed no significant impact on long-term recovery rates or relapse prevention compared to waitlist controls at 6 months follow-up. So the therapeutic alliance, that's the trust and the rapport between the therapist and the client, that accounts for 30% of treatment outcomes. These things can't be measured or manufactured by algorithms. Critics like Dr. Robert Trestman argue that we're medicalizing normal human distress and offering technological band-aids instead of addressing root causes. Those are, of course, social isolation, the economic inequality that we have, the lack of community support. A 2023 investigation by the Mozilla Foundation found that 90% of mental health apps fail to meet basic privacy standards. And would you believe it, some selling user data to advertisers. Perhaps most troubling, early positive results with the AI therapy may just simply reflect the novelty effect of something new that of course fades over time. And then that of course creates a dependency on systems. Are we creating a generation that just turns to machines for our emotional support simply because we failed to build societies where human beings reliably support each other? Okay, so now let's look at some solutions, or at least some proposed solutions. We've looked at the promising potential, but also some significant limitations of the use of AI in mental health. Let's look at those suggested solutions, shall we? Number one, combine AI-powered tools for accessibility and between-session support with regular human therapist oversight. This maximizes technology scalability while preserving the essential human judgment and, of course, the empathy that's needed in complex cases. Solution two, we need to develop comprehensive regulatory frameworks governing mental health and AI. That should include mandatory encryption, transparent data processing policies, some clinical validation requirements, and clear limitations to disclosure. These must follow some ethical guidelines. Number 3, ensure therapeutic AI is trained on peer-reviewed, culturally diverse clinical data and evidence-based interventions. This will require regular auditing for bias, accuracy, and clinical appropriateness. This is essential to maintain the quality. Solution number 4, we've got to clearly communicate that AI tools are built to supplement rather than substitute human care. We need to set appropriate user expectations of these, particularly in regard to data, the analysis, and effectively the ongoing community support. And solution 5, suggested, to design AI systems with built-in escalation protocols that identify when human intervention is necessary, and that way it can facilitate immediate referrals to human professionals, particularly in those critical crisis situations with complex cases or perhaps treatment resistance conditions. So there we are, some food for thought. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the future, won't we? Thank you again for tuning in to Peace Unplugged, and I look forward to speaking to you again on some later podcasts. Bye for now.